Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be with you once again. I'm sorry I cannot be with you in person in New Delhi. I had planned to come, but somehow it didn't work out. But at least I am grateful to God that I can speak in person and send you this video presentation. First of all, in my first slide, I have to say heartiest congratulations to TEFLAS, heartiest congratulations to Solvent Extractors Association for once again, for the second time, organizing Globe Oil in New Delhi. When we have Globe Oil in New Delhi, we are actually honoring the contribution of Northern India, which is a very important part of the Indian market and the second, in my opinion, the second most important market for veg oils on the Indian subcontinent. And of course, considering that we are in our capital city and in the national capital region. So many congratulations to all of you who come and support Globe Oil New Delhi. I wish I could be there myself. I haven't been in New Delhi for a long time, but maybe next year I should be able to join you. The other piece of good news that we should all be rubbing our hands with glee is the fact that the export tax, the much hated export tax on CPO, has been suspended by Malaysia. It's a very bold and very dramatic move by the Malaysian government. We have to congratulate them because they have realized that this export tax is actually pulling back Malaysian exports of palm oil, particularly CPO. And I hope that this move will reward them handsomely and lead them to a complete change in thinking so that this export tax is never brought back, it is removed forever, and the refining industry of the world is put on a level playing field. All refiners, whether in India, whether in Pakistan, whether in Malaysia, whether in Indonesia, should have access to CPO unhindered. And then let the most efficient, the most prolific survive and prosper. I think Malaysia and Indonesia will both find that abolishing these export taxes which distort trade is a very good move of taking care of the export market. So, congratulations on those scores. Now, before I talk about price outlook, let me take you quickly through the background to what has been happening. If you remember at the Price Outlook conference last year, exactly 11 months ago in Kuala Lumpur, I had forecast that Malaysian palm oil production in 2017 would be between 19.8 and 20 million tons. The final outcome was exactly as we had predicted 11 months ago. But we all like to improve upon what we do. So I revised my forecast 3 times in the year. And all 3 times I was wrong. What I had said the first time was correct, and I should have stuck to it. So that was a mistake. And I think all of us forecasters got the production of Malaysia and Indonesia wrong. It shows that the oil palm either does not like forecasters like us or it loves to prove us wrong. So with that, let us now go to the next point. How did we fare in terms of market forecast of prices? Here again, the most important price determining factor was not the supply of palm oil or the demand for palm oil. The most important factor was China. China increased her appetite for soybean meal and they imported massive amounts of soybeans and they crushed all the soybeans within China. So there was a huge oversupply of soybean oil. And when you had an oversupply of soybean oil, naturally they imported less palm oil. They neglected palm oil and that created a kind of a shadow on the palm oil market. Despite that, Demand for palm oil from all other parts of the world, including India, was buoyant, and we had record exports of palm oil. But because of the absence of China, we did not see the bull market in palm oil prices that many of us had forecast. What are going to be the factors for 2018, as I say in my next slide? I think 2018 palm production will hold the key. The other factor will be the prospects for soybeans in South America in the next 2 months, particularly in Argentina. The prospects for sunflower seed in Ukraine in 2018. The excellent demand for palm oil from the developing world. And to my mind, a critical price making factor will be biofuel demand or energy demand because of the rise in energy prices. My preliminary forecast of palm oil production in 2018, I am now being a little careful and taking into account rainfall and the fact that the palm trees are now well rejuvenated, well rested. I think we may see production of 21 million tons in Malaysia and 38 million tons in Indonesia. So overall, for the oil year 17-18, we will see an increase in palm oil production of 4.5 million tons. The current high production cycle started in September 17. As we all saw, September onwards the production was very strong. And I expect this high production cycle to continue until April of 18. After that, the oil palm tree will take some rest. As you know, after 6-8 months of high production, the tree needs to recoup and rest. And then again, from September 18, we are likely to see a high cycle of production coming through. So that is why I am optimistic of high production both in Malaysia and Indonesia. One other word of production in Indonesia, Kalimantan and Sabah, the two parts of what used to be called Borneo Island, now the world's biggest production space for palm oil. That underperformed in 2017 because of the very dramatic El Nino of 2015. I expect that all the effects of the 2015 drought are now over. The trees are doing well. Everything has been replenished, and we will see very large production from Kalimantan and Sabah in 2018. Now, many of you know that I made a speech in Karachi at the Pakistan Edible Oils Conference only 10 days ago on the 20th of January. And within 10 days, not much changes. So let me first remind you of what I forecast over there, and then let us see if there have been any changes, etc. My outlook was, I said that I forecast a gradual rise in prices from BMD 2,500 ringgit to 2,700 ringgit. Gradual rise. I think Olein will rise from the level of around 670 FOB for AMJ. It can rise by $50 to $720 AMJ. And I think CPO CIF Rotterdam, which is around 680, can rise to about 730, 740, 750 even. Those were my forecasts in Karachi. Now, what has changed since the Karachi conference? One, we are seeing more evidence that production is seasonally declining. You saw the MPOA statistics for 1st January to 20th January production in Malaysia, down by 17%. We now have had a further holiday in Malaysia, and We will have more holidays because of Chinese New Year in February. So we have to bear that in mind. There is also more evidence of strong exports. Production was down 17% in Malaysia, exports were down only 9%, and non-milk exports are likely to have recovered much better. There is also evidence that biodiesel usage is strong. There is evidence that the world economy as a whole, all over Africa, West Asia, Indian subcontinent, economies are growing well. And all of them are growing almost at the same time, which is why stock markets are doing well. And finally, we are seeing the effect of a weak dollar. Weak dollar always means good commodity prices. So these are some of the changes that we have seen, which we must take care of. My next slide is on the swing factor, which is energy. The POGO, or the palm oil gas oil spread, has narrowed down to about $20. What that means is that palm oil can be converted into biodiesel and used for energy, or palm oil can be burnt to produce electricity at an economical price. And of course, it is clean energy or green energy. This has triggered a massive amount of energy demand for oil palm oil, particularly in Europe, where there are incentives for green electricity. This business normally goes unreported, and it will only come to light when the actual shipments take place. So, in my opinion, a lot of bearishness in the market has already been priced in, and we are likely to see the effects of those exports and those shipments in the next coming months. Let me now say a few things about China. I am bullish on China. China is a very disciplined country and it has few or no disturbances. Once a policy is announced, its implementation is almost guaranteed. This is not the case in India, for example. And that is why you see that the Chinese economy has been flourishing and, of course, has a head start over us. The China consumption story is almost incredible. Just see how much their imports of soybeans have taken off and the consumption of soybean meal has expanded. So we must expect some good news from China on the pricing front in terms of bullishness. We must count on China to expand her consumption of oilseeds again in 2018 and to expand some non-food use of vegetable oil also. That means for biodiesel. China's steady growth will expand demand also for metals and commodities. And in my opinion, China could well be the growth engine of the world for 2018. My next slide deals with the question I posed to myself. Will 2018 be the year of commodities? Many economists and famous merchant banks like Goldman Sachs are saying that 2018 will be the year when commodities will shine. Many of them have repeated this forecast recently. To my mind, a softer dollar, low interest rates, steady world growth, these are factors that almost ensure that demand for commodities remains buoyant. So if commodities are going to have a good 2018, how can we be bearish on vegetable oil? There is one other factor that people ignore when they talk very bearishly about veg oil prices, and that is weather. We have had 4 years of uninterrupted bumper harvests in soybeans. Back to back. South America, North America, South America, North America, bumper harvests. We have had 4 years of uninterrupted bumper harvests in sunseed in Ukraine and Russia. It usually doesn't happen that way, but it has. We have been very lucky. Last 2 years, after the very cruel El Nino of 2015, we have had 2 years of very good weather in the palm oil belt. So, how long do we expect this Goldilocks scenario to continue and for the world to enjoy good weather and escape any ravages of dry weather or any other problems? That brings me to India. And as my next slide says, on import duties, so far we have done exceedingly well in India, and I have to give a rich pat on the back to our Solvent Extractors Association and to other sister associations like SOPA and all, who all cooperated. We were all united in representing to the government. The government also, hats off to them. They listened. This is a listening government, obviously. But I would say Team SEA did extremely well. And we can all be proud of what they have done. And I'm sure you have given them many rounds of applause, not only to the people from SEA, all our stalwarts, but also to our well-wishers like Mr. Pasha Patel, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, and others who have all come together in the national interest. I think that is something that we can all be proud of. There are one or two things which need to be rationalized in the import duties. I think yesterday's budget may have taken care of some may be unfinished business. But there is one thing that SEA needs now to focus on, and they have to do a job of salesmanship. And they have to convince the government that these large resources which are being mobilized from import duties on veg oils should be plowed back into oilseed agriculture, either in the form of development fund or direct subsidies to our farmers, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But this money has to be plowed back into oilseed farming. Set up model farms, do whatever is necessary. That is the only way we will be able to get our Indian oilseed agriculture booming once again. On the import front, imports, what I project, and I have not changed these which I presented 10 days ago, that I am quite bullish on India's imports. The economy is doing well, prices are not high. So we expect that India's imports will be almost 16 million tons, 15.9. Palm will benefit 9.8 million tons of palm. Soya will be about the same 3.2 million tons. And sunflower is booming, but I think sunflower eventually will run into a problem of availability. Prices will rise, and so I am only projecting sun oil imports at 2.3 million tons. The balance will be taken up by rapeseed oil and miscellaneous. On the biodiesel front, because we are now looking at energy demand, food demand, and then, as we usually do in my paper, we shall analyze the incremental supply and incremental demand. So, on energy demand, Malaysia is at B7. It's been a huge disappointment. Malaysia can easily go to B10, but the political will does not seem to be there. Indonesia, on the other hand, is very likely to increase its usage of palm biodiesel after Ramzan. And Indonesia is a place where we are hopeful that more energy demand will crystallize. Brazil is the one country in the world which takes renewable energy very seriously. They have done wonders with ethanol. Now they are doing the same wonders with soya biodiesel. And they will be going to 10% biodiesel to be blended from March 2018, which means that effectively Brazil will stop exporting soybean oil. And that is why I am reasonably optimistic or bullish on soya oil prices. The other factor is discretionary blending. where you don't need subsidies, you don't need compulsions. The cost of biodiesel is lower than the cost of fossil diesel, and that is why people substitute. And I think that will happen at some stage later in this year. And the first country to switch will be Indonesia. Watch Indonesia carefully. World energy demand, veg oil use for biodiesel increased by 3 million tons in 16-17, mainly because of Indonesia and the Indonesian mandate. I think in 17-18, this demand will increase by 4 million tons, mainly again because of greater usage in Brazil and in Indonesia. We may see some greater biodiesel usage in the United States, but so far the US has been a huge disappointment. US farmers had such high hopes from the Trump administration, and they voted for Mr. Trump in huge numbers. I'm just wondering what they think now, because none of those high hopes on biodiesel, biofuels have been realized. And the US farmer who used to sell his soybeans at $15 a bushel, then he sold them at $12 a bushel and he was very angry, is now selling his soybeans at $9.50 a bushel. And he's wearing caps saying, Make America Great Again. So let's see. World food demand, in my opinion, will rise by 3 million tons again this year, having risen by 3 million tons last year. So now we come to the very important slide on incremental supply and incremental demand. And you can see that in 17-18, I am expecting world supply to increase by 7.5 million tons, mainly on the back of palm oil supply increasing by 4.5 million tons and soybean oil supply increasing by 2 million tons. The rest of it is very small. And against the increase of 7.5 million tons, we have demand going up by 7 million tons. Last year, supply went up by 12 million tons because palm oil supply rose by 6.5 million tons. So we spent last year building up stocks, replenishing stocks. This year we don't have the ability to replenish stocks any further. Stocks, supply and demand are more or less in balance. And this is one more reason why I am not bearish on vegetable oil prices for this current year. As I said, if biofuel demand comes up, this is the new joker in the pack. If biofuel demand is more than what we expect, we can have stronger prices. Otherwise, prices will behave as we are predicting. Now, my assumptions for price outlook for next year. Brent crude will go up from between $60 and $70 a barrel. I think the Fed will tighten very gradually and will raise interest rates. The US dollar will get stronger, particularly against currency of Brazil and Argentina. Both countries, Brazil has an election later this year. Argentina seems to be having problems with its currency. The currency has been slipping. I, however, think that the dollar, which is weakening against most other currencies, will weaken in the first half and will get stronger in the second half. So, based on these assumptions, and I may be wrong on the dollar could continue weakening if you have political problems in the United States. So one cannot be sure. On production, as I said, palm is in the high cycle at the moment and will continue to be good until March. After that, it will gradually, the seasonal factor will kick in, but otherwise it will not expand so much. And the next big push in production will come in September. Palm, in my opinion, looks oversold and demand is at record levels. And for that reason, I am not changing the price forecasts I gave in Karachi 10 days ago. I think those forecasts hold good today. So, I expect CPO CIF Rotterdam to rise from 680 to about 750 by June. I expect RBD palm oil April, May, June, which is the most traded position today. It bottomed out at 630 FOB. It should climb from the current level of 670 to about 720. And soya oil from Argentina should rise again for April, May, June shipment from the current. When I spoke in Karachi, it was around $735 FOB. It's now about 750 FOB. I think it will rise to 775, 780 FOB. So most bullish on soybean oil, reasonably bullish on palm. Malaysia will have general elections in at least by August 2018, probably in April, probably in June. So we must expect the Malaysian government to support palm oil prices. Palm oil, small growers, small holders are a very important political constituency. And when governments find that their survival is at stake, they will find ingenious methods of supporting agriculture. So that is why I feel fairly confident that the BMD futures, no matter how strong the ringgit gets, and the ringgit is very strong now, it has achieved all the forecast that we had made about strengthening. I said 3.9, it's now gone to 3.86. I think BMD will be able to hold 2500 and may even go up to 2700. On other oils, I think sun oil prices are cheap relative to other oils. I think the Ukrainians are in too much of a hurry to sell. At some stage later in 2018, sun oil will go to a premium to soybean. As I said, we have had 4 bumper crops in Russia and Ukraine. This has not happened usually. This winter has been quite dry, so we have to watch and see whether we have a weather problem in this part of the world. That brings me to lauric oils. The demand for CPKO-based products is booming, and stocks are only now beginning to get replenished. The production of coconut oil and palm kernel oil in 2018 will be high, but the competition from petrochemicals will not be so great this year because petrochemical prices are also rising. And that is why I expect lauric oil prices to decline, but to decline very gradually, particularly only in the second half of 2018, not before. I keep being asked the question pointedly, will veg oil prices rise in 2018? I think the answer in dollar terms, yes. The drop in the BMD has been deceptive. In terms of US dollars, prices have fallen very little. Any revival of energy demand or visibility of energy related business will support prices. So I expect a gradual rise in prices from now until June 2018. I am not making a forecast for the second half of the year because at the moment it is impossible to guess what the production etc. will be. And finally, in conclusion, I would say we have seen the lows of the year. The lows happened in the first 2 weeks of 2018. I think the lows are gone. We should now expect gradually rising prices over the next several months. Indian Rabi oilseed outlook is not that good. And I expect, again here, the government wants prices to rise. The government wants to help farmers. Indian government is not that effective when it says it wants to do something for agriculture. If the Indian government wants to learn a lesson, they should go to Indonesia or Malaysia and see how those governments help their farmers. But with good intentions, I have faith that local Indian prices will also be supported, and that is why we can look forward to good times in this industry. And with those words, once again, heartiest congratulations to all my colleagues and best wishes.